Today I'm sharing how to make a simple junk journal from start to finish. I'm using an eclectic mix of various found and upcycled papers, such as these cheap printer papers that I use to roll off the excess paint from my brayer. I also use them to pull the last print off my gel plate to clean it. So I'll be using these as well as some grid papers, a brown envelope, vintage sheet music, and a white paper bag. And finally, I have this heavyweight mixed media paper, which I played around on with paint some time ago. I'll be using this to make my cover, but I will set it aside for the time being. I'm using an A6 notebook as my template to measure the papers. I take a paper and fold it and pencil a line around the outside of my notebook. Then I use a ruler to tear along the lines instead of using scissors to create a more organic look. I continue doing this for all the papers except for the grey cardstock, which is a bit thick to tear. So I cut the edges with a pair of craft scissors that replicate a deckled edge. I don't mind size discrepancies between the papers as this makes for an interesting look later on. Now it's time to prepare the cover. I cut it just slightly larger than the paper stack as I want all of them to fit in nicely. Altogether, I use 10 different papers, which will give you a 40-page mini junk journal. I find the edges of the cover a bit too white, so I take a distress ink pad and swipe it along the edges. Now that the papers are all done, I prime them on both sides with a light coat of clear gesso. I did not film this part all the way through as it's quite boring. The gesso makes the papers a bit more sturdy once I start binding them together. I taped a strip of masking tape along the center of this sheet music as it's typically prone to tearing. Once all the insert papers are dry, I refold them using this plastic folding tool, and then I assemble them in the order of my liking. I like that most of them already have color or some marks on them, so I'm not faced with a completely blank page later on when I start using it. Now it's time to bind all the papers together. I'm using a very easy 3-hole method. I've cut off a length of strong embroidery thread and tied a knot at the bottom and threaded it through a strong needle. With a ruler, I measure the center of the pages and make a pencil mark. Then I measure 3 centimeters on either side and make a mark there as well. You may want to use a clip to hold all the papers in place. Next, I'm using an awl tool to puncture the pencil marks right through the cover. I've placed a piece of chipboard underneath so that I don't damage my table. Always be careful when working with sharp tools. Now I take my needle and insert it through the middle hole from the inside and pull it through. From here, I insert it back in through the top hole. On the inside, I thread it through the bottom hole to the outside and then back through the center hole. I cut off most of the thread but leave enough to tie a double knot. Now my mini junk journal is almost done, but I want to add a slip pocket and this little paper bag to the inside of the cover. I will need to cut a strip of paper double the length of the cover to fold into a slip pocket. I glue down the top part with a glue stick and then fold the bottom accordion style to make a little pocket. I glue the overlap together and then glue this flap only along the sides. For the back inside cover, I am simply adding a jelly print cut to size and glue the little paper bag on top. I now have a convenient place to store my paper embellishments. Finally, I added a title to my cover and I use a binder clip to close it. And voila, the mini junk journal is now finished. Oh, that was fun!